Hey everyone, Felix from Nintendo Life here, and today we're here to review for you Kirby Air Riders for the Nintendo Switch 2. Yes, there's a lot of games coming out recently. This review was written by the stupendous PJ O'Reilly and has been adapted into this video by me. Kirby Air Ride, we think it's fair to say, didn't receive all that warm of a welcome when it launched back in 2003. With lucky GameCubers already enjoying the delicious driving juices of Mario Kart Double Dash and F-Zero GX, Kirby's cute and chaotic style of racing just didn't seem to stick with the mainstream, and as a result, it's become known as one of those Marmite efforts. You either gelled with its new approach of slinging yourself around tracks, or you didn't. For us personally, we always enjoyed Air Ride's novel take on track racing. We also think it's a game that sings especially strong in multiplayer, once everyone who's racing fully knows what they're doing. Indeed, this was the first GameCube title that allowed for LAN setups via broadband adapters, so the multiplayer was 100% where the gravy was at. Taking everything into account though, and despite our love for the OG, a sequel in the form of Kirby Air Riders was an unexpected announcement during the run-up to Switch 2. We certainly didn't have it on our Switch 2 bingo card, so it's lucky then, given that it is a bit of a curveball, that it's very good indeed. If we had to guess the two main issues people had with Kirby Air Ride back in the day, it's a fairly even split between a lack of meaningful single-player content and how messy the game can seem to the uninitiated as races and minigames play out. Nintendo has obviously taken note of the first issue here, and as a result, we've got a story mode with multiple paths and endings and a metric ton of content to keep you busy. It's also got a very gritty and serious sci-fi tone, which is so at odds with the style of the actual racing that you can't help but love it. However, on the second problem, well, you'll have to suck eggs and learn how to play the game, we're afraid. It all makes sense when you get into the sweet air riding groove. It wasn't broken in the first place, so bravo to Masahiro Sakurai for sticking to his guns and keeping the soul of it all intact. On that note, air riding, it's not karting. This style of racing is a different beast entirely, and there's a learning curve in getting a hang of the basics. In Air Riders, you take control of a rider from an ever-growing roster of Kirby and his pals, each of whom has an impressive variety of stats relating to their driving abilities, along with their own specials and tricks to pull off mid-race. Stuff like turbo boosts, area of effect attacks, and lots of other stuff we won't spoil the fun of unlocking. Once you've chosen Bandana Waddle Dee, we mean whoever your favorite is, you then pick a machine. These aren't just different for the sake of being different, nor do they simply have varying degrees of speed, boost, handling, and so on. No, in Air Riders, there's depth, proper depth, and it comes in the form of an impressive mix of unique machines that work in fundamentally different ways. We've all seen the default Warp Star that gives you a nice balance of ground and airspeed, but then you've also got other options like the incredible fast but terribly fragile Paper Star, the charging Tank Star, and the slippery Slick Star, and even a few that transform or straight up blink like electricity from point to point on a track as they slow then boost. There's a lot more to take in than you may expect at first, and especially if you've listened to naysayers over the years who say it's shallow. Get a few seasoned riders into a race and things can get hugely intense. With a rider and machine now chosen, you then get down to slinging yourself around. Movement forward is automatic, the number one mental hurdle for newcomers. Your job as a pilot is to make sure you utilize every opportunity on the track as it presents itself to gain maximum forward momentum by spinning, shifting around the course to hit boosts and jumps, and hammering enemies for mini boosts and copy abilities to wail on your opponents with. Once you get it, it's incredibly Moorish and almost Zen-like in the focus that's required to down another rider who knows what they're doing. Feels too automated, you're not trying hard enough. Also, at the core of racing, beyond the automatic nature of traveling forward, you also have the all-important boost/brake button. Holding down B or basically any other button than Y will slow your machine right down until it eventually stops. It also at the same time charges up your turbo boosts, so there's a strategy at the heart of everything here, and it's a pleasing one in how it relates to some very nicely designed tracks. You want to know these tracks well to target the best jumps, to know the best opportunities to slow right down for full boost, tight corners are the most obvious example, or overtake, and to find these opportunities on any given course, whilst also battling a constant stream of other riders and NPC enemies, makes for an addictive and satisfying thing to settle into. It's Maniac in all the right ways. This sequel too is made all the more satisfying by some visually spectacular race sequences spliced throughout the tracks. There's a mix of sections composed of proper tight corner racing alongside flashy on-rail sequences where you whip between rails to collect/dodge and set yourself up to boost into whatever comes next. Nintendo has gone to town on these rail sequences, with some cool parts where riders tumble and spin throughout all sorts of wild scenarios. The game does well to give you just enough control at all times and enough ways to steal a lead or damage your opponents that even when you're not fully in control of your machine, and even when your weapons are auto-fire on proximity for a lot of the time, it still feels like you're needing to think quickly and know the rules, tracks and machines inside out to make an impact, especially in online mode. The story mode is the real big addition, and it makes a good impression. We won't ruin the narrative, and it's not much to write home about, but the setup where you race through 11 chapters composed of levels full of races and minigames works well. Between each race and challenge, you'll return to your vehicle as it blasts along a road through each stage, and this gives you 3 options at all times on how to proceed, so there's a variety along the way until you hit a mini-boss or a boss race battle. It also gives solo players lots to unlock, there's replayability in returning for alternate endings, and it acts as a fantastic training mode for the delights of online. Before we touch on online though, you've also got the returning city trial, air ride and top-down racing modes. These generally remain largely unchanged from what was offered up in the original game. City Trial gives you 5 minutes, can also be lowered to 3 minutes or up to 7 minutes to gather as many collectibles as you can whilst blasting other races before being dropped into a minigame for a grand finale, and it's as chaotically frenzied as ever. Top-down mode is honestly addictive as hell when you get into it. Think Codemasters' Grand Prix Sim on the Commodore 64, but with crazy courses and you're 90% of the way there. It's the online though that's the real king. We've had limited time with it for this review, but we found matches in Air Ride and in City Trial modes against a few ferocious competitors, and we couldn't be happier with the performance. No input lag, no issues connecting, and in races, it was buttery smooth as it is across all modes. The City Trial and Air Ride races really do come alive here, and we implore you to dig in, learn how to drive the machine of your choice well, and reap the benefits of some surprisingly fierce competition, alongside all the jumping into targets, gliding completions, and races where you try to eat more than everyone else. Kirby's gonna Kirby. As a solo game, Kirby Air Riders is a step up then. Each of its modes bring over 100 collectible bits and bobs to unlock and create a picture scene from the story, so there's plenty to work towards. The campaign itself also does a suitably Kirby-esque job in starting out relatively normal on the narrative front before ending up in some far-out sci-fi states. The whole thing also looks and plays as good as anything we've played on Switch 2 thus far, so you're in for a treat on that front. We've also got to make a special point here to mention the surprisingly deep machine customizations on offer. We were actually a little shocked. There's loads of textures, icons, unlockable pixel art, and all matter of ways to truly make all your machines your own. It's a lot, and it's very, very welcome for solo fans. On to nitpicks we go though, and we have to say that the chaos, all the huge icons and speeding around amidst groups of riders, especially in City Trial, can feel aimless at times. And it's still every bit the Marmite experience. The story is silly, and most of the side games, which see you hit air targets, make long jumps and so on, well, they're not exactly riveting. And in local multiplayer, whilst playing on the same system, we spotted that you lose the ability to see the stats of your chosen rider and machines, which sort of take away the ability to inspect and learn on the fly. Well, let's hope a little tweak can be patched into that one. This is a huge, big, colourful beast of a sequel. It's jam-packed from side to side with stuff to find, to unlock and collect, and it has proper depth. There's loads of machines, riders, and courses, and should you get stuck in and learn and get good, you'll find an alternative to the usual kart racer style of business that absolutely deserves its place on any podium. So in conclusion, Kirby Air Riders is a cracking sequel that gives solo players much more to dig into with its story campaign, whilst also bringing all new levels of shiny graphics, bells and whistles to its returning city trial, air ride and top-down racing modes. This is a chaotic and frenzied racer, there's no doubt. But it's got depth for those who wish to learn and plenty of competition to be had both online and on harder difficulties for diehards. With lots of excellent tracks, riders, and machines to unlock, sat alongside some surprisingly deep machine customization, Kirby's latest air riding adventure is off to a strong start. Oh, and that soundtrack is sublime. We here at Nintendo Live give Kirby Air Riders for the Nintendo Switch 2 an 8 out of 10.